Hi there, this is Kat, and I've been teaching strings and stringed instruments for about 10 years here in Cookeville. I teach mainly private lessons, and I see some of the same issues come up over and over again with my violin players, fiddle, cello, anything that uses a bow. You're just gonna get some squeaks. It's just gonna happen. And so I want to go through all of the ways that I've ever seen bows squeak, so that hopefully when you're practicing at home, you can learn to identify them and know what you're doing so that you know how to fix it. Now, I want you to know that if there's a way to make a bow squeak, I have done it. And you have to. You have to go through all the wrong ways to get to the right one. So let's just start with some of the basics. Okay, so let's make sure that your bow is tight enough and not too tight. If your bow is too loose, let me make my bow too loose so you can see what that looks like. See how the the hair is touching the bow just about? So when I put this on the string, I'm gonna hear the stick. Maybe you can't hear it on the recording, but you can hear it in person. It just sounds like you're kind of hearing the bow hitting the string. So you want to make sure that your bow is tight enough that the hair comes off of it, but not so tight that you lose this concavity, okay? Bows are designed to still be bent this way, even when they're tight enough to play with. Okay, so there's that. Then you have to make sure your bow is straight with the bridge. Let me show you how I check that. When I practice keeping my bow straight, I'll stand in front of the mirror, like where you are, and make my bridge a straight line. And then I'll look in the mirror and keep my bow parallel the whole time to the bridge. This may look easy. It's not. Not at first, at least. Very common. I see mistakes like this. So I'm not extending my elbow. I've got a stiff elbow. If all I do is swing my shoulder, I'm not going to have a straight bow. So in order to keep the bow straight, we start at the frog. And then when I get to where my elbow is at a 90-degree angle, at this point, I no longer move my shoulder. I extend my elbow. See how that keeps my bow straight? And you'll notice that I don't even get to the tip of my bow. If I try to get to the tip of my bow and I'm not tall enough, I don't have long enough arms, I'm gonna end up kind of like trying to get my shoulder out there. We don't want to do that. Stay comfortable. So I get to the 90-degree angle and then just extend my elbow as far as is comfortable. Okay, now when I keep my bow straight, you're going to notice that a lot of things are moving. We talked about the elbow moving. Another thing that moves is my wrist. I want you to watch my wrist this time. Notice that when I'm at the frog, I have a mountain in my wrist. And when I get to the end of my bow, I have a valley in my wrist. I don't make that happen, it just happens kind of naturally. That allows some movement and some play in the wrist that lets your bow stay straight. Let's see, I've got my notes here. The next thing I want to talk about is bow pressure. Now, we don't actually have to exert any downward pressure on the bow. We don't have to push. Our arms are heavy enough. A lot of the work that we do is lightening the weight of the bow as we come towards the frog. Let me show you what happens if I don't lighten the weight of the bow. You're gonna love this. Heard that before? Yeah. So what happens first is, if we get too much pressure on the bow, hear how the pitch kind of drops? It kind of goes flat. That's how you know you've got too much weight and you need to lift up a little bit with your bow. Conversely, If you don't have enough pressure, you're going to get sort of a skating sound. Listen to this. So there, I'm being a little too scared of the bow and a little too gentle, so I'm not making enough contact with the bow on the string. Okay, let's take a break for a second. I have a trick question for you. What holds up the bow? What holds up the bow? If you said your hand, you are not correct. Here's what's cool. The string holds up the bow. I'm just holding on and guiding it a little bit. But what's actually holding it up is my fiddle. And that's what allows me to be really relaxed in my arm, is I'm not actually trying to hold it much. I'm just holding it enough that I don't drop it. Okay, so the next thing we need to cover is the point of contact. And what I mean by that is, where is your bow hitting on the string? Is it hitting like right over the fingerboard? Is it hitting right on the bridge? Generally, we want to aim for in the middle, between the bridge and the fingerboard. That's the sweet spot. That's a really good sound. However, if you want to creep a little closer to the bridge, you've got to slow it down. Listen. So that's a good tip for if you need your bow to last like a really long time. Get close to the bridge and go slow. If I go over the fingerboard or close to it, watch how fast I have to go. And do you notice that the sound is kind of wispier? None of these are right or wrong. They're all kind of like vocabulary. Like, they're all fine. Just know that you can do them all and play around with it and experiment. And they're things to kind of have in your back pocket for different things that you want to express with your bow. Let's see. Okay, moving too fast. If I am here, moving too fast, get a really ghosty kind of sound, ringy kind of sound. You're not giving your bow enough time to sink in and really grip. However, if I'm going too slow, we're going to get that like kind of sound again. Bows are like maddening little radars. They just like, or like antennas, they like pick up if you're nervous, if you're angry, if you're not completely 100% relaxed. It's like they just pick it all up and broadcast it. I think that's what I like about practicing longbows so much, is it really makes me relax. I can hear if I'm relaxed in my tone or if I'm a little tense. In fact, let me just take a break for a second and tell you, one of the very best ways that I got very good at bowing was that mirror exercise I told you about, where I stand sort of sideways to a mirror and I watch my bow, not here. You can't really tell if it's straight or not, just looking at it. But if you look in a mirror, you can go, oh, and you can see if it's parallel to the bridge. I used to practice that for about, 10 minutes a day until it became muscle memory. Okay, there's one last kind of squeak that I want to tell you about, and it is the most maddening kind of squeak. It happens when, okay, say like I've got my third finger on the D string. This is my 5-string fiddle, by the way. This is my D string. And say I don't have my wrist in a completely straight line. Say I'm in a little bit. And so my tunnel over the strings is actually touching the A string just a little. Listen to this. Fun, right? Say I want to play a G to an A to a G. But if I touch that A string just a little bit, then you're for sure gonna get that squeak. Now that's actually telling you some good information, because if you can play that tunnel and it sounds perfect, that means that your hand is in a really good position. But if you're touching that string a little bit, something's out of whack, like your wrist is in, or your knuckle is too far down, something like that. Okay, I think I've covered just about all the squeaks I can think of. Are there more? Can you think of other squeaks? If there's anything else that I've left out and you'd like me to address, please let me know. Thanks, have a good day.